most powerful thing you can do in response to someone who is trying to provoke you is nothing. Not the nothing of someone who did not notice. Not the nothing of someone who is afraid to respond. The nothing of someone who looked at what was being offered. The bait, the drama, the invitation to react, and made a deliberate, unhurried decision that it was not worth the cost of engaging. That nothing is one of the most misunderstood and most underused instruments of psychological power available to a human being. And Niccolò Machiavelli, who spent his career studying the mechanics of power in the most brutal political environment of the Renaissance, understood it with a precision that most people who have read him still manage to miss. He did not write about non-reaction directly. He wrote about something deeper, the psychology of the person who cannot be moved, who cannot be provoked into revealing themselves, who cannot be dragged into a battle that was never going to serve them, who understands at a level that is no longer effortful that the person who reacts has already lost something, their composure, their mystery, their position above the emotional fray that is almost impossible to recover once it is gone. This video is about 7 laws he derived from that understanding. Laws that, applied together, produce a quality of psychological power that most people will encounter in you before they have the words to describe what they are experiencing. Before the laws, one truth that the entire framework rests on: reaction is information. Every time you react to a provocation, to criticism, to someone's attempt to destabilize you, to the small and large tests that people continuously run on everyone around them, you reveal something. You reveal what matters to you. You reveal where your defenses are thin. You reveal what can be used to move you. And in a world where information about what moves you is the primary raw material from which influence over you is constructed, the person who reacts freely is the person who continuously arms everyone around them with the tools required to control them. Machiavelli understood that the great game of human interaction is, at its core, an information game. The person with more accurate information about the other wins. And the most valuable information, the information that most directly enables control, is emotional. What do they care about? What are they afraid of? What makes them defensive? What makes them desperate? The person who never reacts keeps all of that information private, and the person whose interior life remains private remains, in the deepest possible sense, free. Law 1. Never react to provocation. Let it die in the silence you give it. Machiavelli wrote that the wise prince does not respond to every slight, because the prince who responds to every slight announces that every slight has the power to reach him. This is the psychological mechanics of provocation understood completely. When someone provokes you, when they say the thing designed to produce a reaction, when they make the move calculated to draw you out of your composure, they are making a bet. The bet is that your emotional investment in your own dignity, your reputation, or your position is strong enough to override your strategic intelligence. They are betting that the feeling will be louder than the thinking, and the moment you react, they win the bet. Not necessarily the argument, not necessarily the situation, but the bet, which was never about the argument or the situation. It was always about whether they could move you. Do not let them move you. Not with drama, not with silence, simply with the genuine, grounded, undramatic absence of the response they were counting on. Let the provocation enter the room and find nothing to attach to. Let it die in the quiet of your non-engagement. And watch what happens to the person who threw it, because the provocateur who receives no reaction has lost the tool they came in with and has nothing left to work with. Law 2. Never explain yourself to people who have already decided what you are. This law is the one that the desire for fairness makes most difficult to follow. Because the impulse to explain, to correct the misunderstanding, to provide the context that would change the judgment if the person making it were operating from full information, feels like it is in the service of truth. It feels like the rational, honest thing to do. But Machiavelli would identify it for what it actually is. In most cases, the attempt to change a mind that was never made up through reason and therefore cannot be changed through reason. The person who has decided what you are arrived at that decision through a process that had very little to do with information and a great deal to do with their own needs, fears, projections, and the particular social function that their judgment of you serves. Adding more information to this process does not produce a better judgment. It produces a more elaborate version of the same judgment, now equipped with your own words as evidence. Every explanation you offer to someone who has already decided is ammunition handed to someone who is already armed. Offer nothing. Let the judgment stand. The people who matter will form their own view from observation over time. The people who do not matter will form whatever view serves them, regardless of what you say. Explanation in either case is wasted. Silence in either case is power. Law 3. Never justify your silence. Let it speak for itself. Most people are so uncomfortable with unexplained silence that they rush to fill it with justification before anyone has even asked for one. I have just been really busy. I needed some time to think. I did not want to say something I would regret. All of these explanations are offered to preempt the discomfort of having silence interpreted in ways that feel threatening. But Machiavelli understood that silence interpreted is silence working. The person wondering what your silence means is a person whose attention is entirely on you, not on their own agenda, not on their next move against you, not on the alternative narrative they were planning to construct. They are focused on decoding you. And the person who is focused on decoding you is the person you are already controlling without having done anything at all. Let the silence exist without explanation. Let it be whatever people need it to be. The mystery it generates is more useful than any clarification you could provide. Law 4. Ignore what is beneath you. Engagement elevates it. This is the law that requires the most genuine self-knowledge to apply, because it requires an honest assessment of what is actually beneath you, which is not the same as what offends you, what irritates you, or what you would prefer not to deal with. Machiavelli's counsel here is precise. The prince who responds to every insult, every petty challenge, every low-level attack on his position, demonstrates through his response that these things have the power to threaten him. And the thing that can threaten the prince is a thing that is, at least temporarily, at the prince's level. Your response elevates what it responds to. Your engagement confers legitimacy on what it engages with. The comment that is not worth your time becomes worth everyone's attention the moment you give it yours. The person who is not in your league enters your league the moment you step down to play their game. Ignore with genuine disregard, not performance, not visible effort, but the authentic non-attention of someone whose focus is on things that are actually worth their focus, and let the ignored thing find its natural level without the elevation your attention would have provided. Law 5. Control your face. It is the first thing your enemies read. Machiavelli wrote extensively about the management of appearances, not because appearance is more important than reality, but because appearance is what others have access to, and what others have access to is what they use to make their decisions about how to deal with you. Your face is the most immediate and most legible version of your interior state available to everyone in your environment. The micro-expressions that flicker before the conscious management system engages, the tension that appears around the eyes when something lands in a way you did not want it to, the slight relaxation of composure that signals to anyone watching carefully that the words that just entered the room found something to attach to. Machiavelli's princes were trained in the management of the face, because everyone who dealt with them was watching it for information. You are in the same position in every significant interaction of your life. Practice the face of the person for whom nothing is a surprise. Not blankness. Blankness is its own form of information, broadcasting the effort of suppression. The face of genuine equanimity. The face of someone who has already considered every possible development and finds the current one unremarkable. That face, sustained consistently, becomes the most effective mask available, because it is not a mask at all. It is the external expression of a mind that has genuinely prepared itself for whatever arrives. Law 6. Never chase. Let the withdrawal of your attention do what pursuit never could. This is the law that operates most visibly in relationships, but that Machiavelli understood as a universal principle of influence. The person who chases, who follows up too quickly, who makes themselves available on demand, who reduces the distance between themselves and what they want through the application of increasing effort and decreasing dignity, teaches the object of their pursuit something critical and damaging, that the pursuit will continue regardless of what the pursued person does, that there is no behavior so discouraging that it will cause the pursuer to withdraw, that the pursued person holds all the power in the dynamic because the pursuer has made their own continued engagement independent of anything the pursued person contributes. Once that lesson is taught, it cannot be untaught within the same dynamic. The relationship has been organized, and it will remain organized in that direction until something fundamental changes. The something that changes it is always the same: the withdrawal of the chaser's attention, not as a tactic, not as a gamey, but as the genuine redirection of focus toward things that are responding to investment rather than consuming it without return. The moment the pursuit genuinely stops, the dynamic not always in the direction the former pursuer hoped, but always in a direction that is more honest than what the pursuit was producing. And honest dynamics, however uncomfortable, are the only ones in which genuine power is possible. Machiavelli observed that the person whose attention is genuinely difficult to hold, whose interest must be earned rather than assumed, whose focus can be lost and whose loss of focus has genuine consequences, is the person whose attention everyone in their orbit works to maintain, not because they manufactured this dynamic artificially, but because they genuinely have things that matter to them more than the approval of any specific person. And the person who has something that matters to them more than your approval is the most attractive and the most powerful person in any room, because you cannot control someone whose primary investment is not in you. Law 7. Build a reputation that makes reaction unnecessary. This is the final law, and the one that Machiavelli would say makes all the others sustainable, because laws 1 through 6 require continuous application if the underlying reputation has not been established. The person who has not yet built a reputation for non-reaction must apply non-reaction consciously and consistently in every interaction, waiting for the cumulative effect of that consistency to reshape how they are approached. But the person who has already established the reputation, who is known through demonstrated behavior across time as someone who does not react, does not explain, does not chase, does not engage with what is beneath them, receives a different quality of treatment from the beginning of every interaction, because the people around them have already run the tests and received the result. They already know that provocation will find no purchase. That explanation will not be demanded and will not be offered. That the normal instruments of social manipulation, guilt, flattery, drama, the performance of need, have no effect on this person. And knowing this, they do not try, which means The person with the reputation never has to expend the energy of application. The reputation does the work. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote that the prince whose character is correctly understood does not need to continuously demonstrate that character. It precedes him into every room he enters and does most of the necessary work before he opens his mouth. The reputation is built through nothing more and nothing less than the consistent application of the first 6 laws across enough interactions and enough time that the pattern becomes undeniable. It is built through every provocation not reacted to, every explanation not offered, every silence not filled, every low-level attack ignored, every face held composed when the less disciplined version of you wanted to flinch, every chase not commenced, every withdrawal of attention that was genuine rather than performed. Each of these is a deposit into a reputational account that compounds with interest slowly at first, then with increasing momentum, until the account is large enough that the reputation generates returns on its own without further deposit required. Taken together, these 7 laws describe not a technique, but a way of being. The person who embodies them is not performing non-reaction. They are not suppressing the desire to react through effortful self. They have built, through sustained practice and genuine self, an interior architecture that is simply not organized around the inputs that most people's social behavior is designed to activate. They are not cold. They are not detached. They are not indifferent to the world around them. They are grounded in it in a way that makes them impossible to uproot through the conventional instruments of social pressure. The provocateur finds nothing to attach to. The manipulator finds no lever to pull. The person who wanted to define them finds no space in which the definition can be installed, because the space is already occupied by a self so fully present, so genuinely its own, that there is simply no room for anything that was not invited. Machiavelli spent his life studying the mechanics of power in a world that was openly brutal about how power actually worked. What he found beneath all the strategy and all the calculation and all the ruthless pragmatism was something that the most powerful people across every era and every domain have always understood, and that most people discover, if they discover it at all, only after they have spent years being moved by things that deserved to be ignored. The foundation of all lasting power is not force. It is not wealth. It is not position or status or the temporary advantage of favorable circumstances. It is the quality of the person who cannot be moved against their will, who cannot be provoked into revealing what they would prefer to keep private, who cannot be dragged into battles that were never designed to be won, who moves through the world with the quiet and absolute authority of someone who has decided completely, finally, and without ongoing negotiation, what they will and will not allow to enter the space of their attention. Never react, never explain, just ignore. These are not instructions for becoming cold. They are the path to becoming something the world has almost no experience with and no reliable strategy for dealing with. A person who is genuinely, completely, and permanently in control of the only thing that was ever actually theirs to control: themselves.